wondering what comes next as Trump vows to fight on with his tariff war. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Stock markets are down today, days after the United States Supreme Court struck down key parts of the tariff strategy of U.S. President Donald Trump. On Friday, in a 6-3 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it is unconstitutional for a U.S. president to unilaterally set and change tariffs because taxation power belongs to the U.S. Congress. But that decision has done little to dissuade Trump from sticking with his tariff plan. Over the weekend, he said he wants a global tariff of 15%, up from the 10% he announced just the day before. The rebuke to the president's tariff agenda was a major topic on the Sunday political talk shows in the U.S. The United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNN that tariffs under President Trump aren't going anywhere.
I want to point to what we're doing. The president, the administration remains undeterred in reshoring American factories and getting rid of these massive trade imbalances. That's the big story here, is that we are immediately going to go to Section 122 tariffs, and that the revenue for the U.S. Treasury for 2026, the projections are unchanged.
The United States Trade Representative is Ambassador Jameson Greer. He's someone top Canadian officials in Ottawa are very familiar with. He told Face the Nation on CBS that while the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled against the president on one form of tariffs, President Trump will simply use other powers he has to impose new tariffs.
And right now, it's important to understand that over the years, Congress has delegated enormous tariff setting authority to the president, depending on the situation. So even though the Supreme Court struck down tariffs under one authority, tariffs under other national security elements remain in place. Tariffs under what we call Section 301 related to unfair trading practice remain in place. And so we, of course, can conduct additional investigations under these tools to impose tariffs, to have continuity in the president's trade policy.
What about refunds? That's a big question because this ruling leaves open the possibility that consumers and businesses could be given refunds for the roughly $175 billion in revenue generated by Trump's tariffs. Rick Wildenberg is the CEO of U.S.-based Learning Resources. He was one of the plaintiffs in this tariff lawsuit. He says given this ruling, the U.S. government owes him money plus interest.
I don't take a position for Mr. Trump or against Mr. Trump, nor do I offer him advice on how he should do his job. In fact, I encourage him to do the best that he can because we need him to. But that notwithstanding, it's not political. It's about taxes, and they owe us money. I expect the government to give me my money back with interest, and as soon as they do, we'll start spending it. So, because that's what we do. And right now, I'm trying to guide the company back to normalcy, which is a state of mind, not a condition. And so we want to run our company again.
When asked about having to refund tens of billions of dollars to businesses impacted by his tariffs, President Trump slammed the Supreme Court ruling.
Since Liberation Day, there's about $175 billion in tariff revenue that is now in limbo. Do you have to refund $175 billion?
Think of it, Peter. Very fair question. They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. They said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
As for what this means for Canada, not much will change, according to Dan Kelly, the president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. But he told the Big Story podcast there could be some relief for some businesses.
For the most part, goods that were duty-free under the CUSMA agreement are still duty-free and tariff-free with the CUSMA agreement, so that part hasn't changed. Sadly, the sectoral tariffs that were in place on things like steel and aluminum, those remain in place, and those are hitting pretty hard. Canada's tariffs as well do remain in place on those many of those same items. Where there is some relief, though, it looks like, is going to be on some non-CUSMA compliant goods that are shipped in from Canada to the United States. Because right now the tariffs on those are at 35%. And that looks like, as of last Friday, it was going to be 10%. Now it's going to be 15%, according to news on Saturday. So if that sticks, that still is a significant reduction, over a 50% reduction in the tariff rates on a portion of Canadian exports going into the United States. So it looks like there is a small win coming out of this for Canada. Of course, we have to balance that with a whole bunch more uncertainty.
As for the federal government's next move, the Prime Minister's office announced this morning that Mr. Carney will travel to India, Australia, and Japan. He's leaving on Thursday for a meeting with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Meanwhile, one of his top people on the trade file, Cabinet Minister Dominic LeBlanc, says his focus remains the upcoming review of CUSMA.
But at the same time, we have been doing the work necessary in Canada to prepare for this not surprising review that was built into the agreement 6 years ago. And so have the Mexicans and so have the Americans. So we look forward to those conversations. I think that those conversations can be fruitful.
Last week, Prime Minister Carney named a new chief trade negotiator to the United States. Janice Charette previously served as clerk of the Privy Council and as Canada's High Commissioner to the UK. Again at midday, stock markets are in a selling mood right now, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 700 points, a loss of about 1.5% so far on the day. We're a little less than 4 hours to go in trading in stocks on Wall Street. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
After a week away, the House of Commons is back in action, and the opposition Conservatives want to know more about the interim federal health program. A recent report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer showed costs for that program have soared in the last decade, nearing $1 billion, headed straight for $1.5 billion a year. It's a program that provides temporary health care services to refugees and asylum seekers. Michelle Rempel Garner is a Calgary area Conservative MP, the immigration critic for the official opposition, and joins us today. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Hi. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. What more do you want to know about the interim federal health program?
Well, we have uncovered a lot of shocking things, like you mentioned, the cost of it, the fact that there are, untold numbers of people who have fake asylum claims who are getting access to better health care than Canadians do, things like vision care, physiotherapy, et cetera. So now that we have this information, we're hoping that the Liberal government will support a constructive motion to do a couple of things. But first of all, make sure and review all of the benefits that asylum claimants are getting so that it's fair and it's not pulling people into the system to abuse it. And second of all, restrict healthcare access to failed asylum claimants, so these are people who have found to have an invalid asylum claim, to emergency health care, life-saving care only. I think that this is a common sense motion that, all people across political stripe would agree with. So we're putting that forward tomorrow so that we can start to restore order in Canada's immigration system, a big task, as well as to address some of the issues that we might see in Canada's healthcare system that are within the federal government's scope to deal with.
Okay. Under this program, there are so-called basic healthcare services, and then there are supplementary health services, and it seems to be the supplementary health services that your party has great trouble with. Explain that, please.
Yeah. So again, this program, when it was conceived, was designed to provide healthcare to legitimate refugees, like people who would have been fleeing war zones, who would have had, injuries or, that had been granted refugee status abroad. That ballooned after the Liberals, remember the hashtag Welcome to Canada tweet. We saw that influx of many of whom bogus asylum claimants illegally crossing the border into Canada, then making asylum claims. That big bulge of people, has created a big backlog in the system, and the system ballooned because they're having access to care that, like you said, that Canadians don't have access to: vision care, physiotherapy, and more. That's not right. It's not how the system was designed to. It's not what the spirit of the program was. And now the cost is so high. Canadians are noticing that this is happening. Provincial governments are raising this as an issue. So it's got to stop. And that was the genesis of this motion, was just to say, look, we need a change here, and this is a constructive way to move forward.
Okay. The government has been here before with this program. You may recall, you may have been a member of the Harper government at the time, Michelle Rempel Garner, that tried to make changes to the interim health program. It was taken to federal court and the government lost. What's different this time around?
Well, I think that the Liberal government, over the last decade, when you think back to 2015, right, the amount of people that were waiting in the asylum queue was less than 10,000. Now it's close to 300,000, and that's on top of the millions of people that the Liberals brought in a very short period of time as, temporary foreign workers, foreign students. So there's a big pressure on the system, and not just the healthcare system, jobs and housing as well. So if it was an issue 10 plus years ago, it's 100 times an issue now. And we're hoping to get the Liberal government on side to say, look, if you guys are serious about actually bringing forward change to the immigration system, I don't think they are, but this is a step in the right direction. And they need to come up with ways to make sure that these changes stick. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see the abuse of the asylum system. We're going to continue to see the consensus for immigration erode in Canada. And frankly, people walking into an emergency room and asking these types of questions, that shouldn't happen. So the motion tomorrow is a step in the right direction. And I hope it's a nudge for the government to figure out, any of the questions that you're asking here today, too. It's, constructive opposition, for sure.
Okay. I must ask you, just while I have you on the line, I know your time is tight, but what do you think? You're an Alberta MP. What do you think of what the Premier of Alberta is going to do, holding a referendum this fall on many immigration-related / healthcare-related questions?
Yeah. Look, I've watched as an Alberta MP the federal Liberal government make a decade of anti-energy policies that has, not just held back the Alberta economy, but when you think about the contributions Alberta makes to the entire country, the country's economy as a whole too, right? So I think that the Premier, she's reacting to that fact, right? And also, the reality is the Liberal government have brought too many people in too fast for housing, healthcare, and jobs to keep up. I would point out, though, that at the federal level, where we're focusing is the fact that we're in this situation. Provincial governments are doing this because of federal policies. So hopefully we can turn that around.
Good to hear from you. Thank you for your time today.
Have a great afternoon.
You too. Michelle Rempel Garner, Calgary area Conservative MP, the immigration critic for the Conservatives. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
It's being called a lot of things: a weather bomb, a bomb cyclone, and old-fashioned nor'easter. Whatever you want to call it. It is a powerful winter storm. It's dumping massive amounts of snow on parts of the United States East Coast and Atlantic Canada. New York City seen more than 13 inches of snow so far, more than 30 centimeters, more to come. Ahead of that storm, New York City's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, urged New Yorkers to sign up to be emergency snow shovelers, but he's faced criticism over that because the application process requires 5 forms of ID, and his critics note that Mamdani is opposed to people having to show ID in order to vote.
This is all long-standing. This is a long-standing program and long-standing requirements, and this is a way that New Yorkers get paid to shovel snow in assistance with the city's response to a winter storm event. Federal law requires that employers get authorization and documentation to pay people for their work. We are not allowed to just cut checks to individuals for their work. And these are the policies that we've had in place, but I understand that for many it's the first time that they've ever heard about it.
Yeah, emergency snow shovelers in New York earn an hourly wage from the city. There's overtime paid too, and the mayor says 1,400 people have signed up.
So the starting pay for emergency snow shovelers is about $19 an hour. After they work 40 hours through a week, that then increases to about $28 an hour. And thanks to the work of DSNY and so many others, we have expanded the pool of emergency snow shovelers. In the previous storm, we were looking at about 500 emergency snow shovelers. Now that pool has expanded to about 1,400. And you heard the commissioner say about plans for how the first 1,000 of them are going to be deployed between this evening and tomorrow morning.
Mickey Sherrill is the governor of New Jersey. She is predicting her state will be hit with the worst storm in 30 years, and she's already declared a state of emergency.
The entire state of New Jersey, all 21 counties, is under a blizzard warning for the first time in 30 years. This is likely to be the worst storm that we have seen since 1996. There is a 90% likelihood of the whole state getting a foot of snow or more. The coast especially could see 2 or more feet, along with a flooding risk. The worst is expected overnight into tomorrow morning, when snowfalls could reach as much as 3 inches per hour.
Up into New England, some parts of Massachusetts could get as much as 2 feet of snow, about 60 centimeters worth. And across Nova Scotia today, winter storm warnings in effect from Yarmouth to Cape Breton. Many students across the province being sent home early today. Some parts of Nova Scotia could get in excess of 25 centimeters, the potential for much more in other parts of the province. Very strong wind gusts, 70 to 80 kilometers an hour, meaning there's a likelihood of power outages. Nova Scotia Power opened its emergency operations center ahead of the storm. Temperatures around the freezing mark. There's a good chance that some of this snow could be mixed with rain at times, making the snow very heavy, so-called heart attack snow. Dangerous for some people to shovel. This storm system right now, you look at it on the map, it stretches just south of Delaware, all across central Nova Scotia, now moving into the western parts of Cape Breton. PEI will also be impacted. Charlottetown as much as 25 centimeters along with those high winds, and it won't move out until sometime tomorrow morning. It's time for our Monday Newsday political panel. Welcoming back Matthew Dube, Vice President at Proof Strategies, former NDP MP, and Tim Powers, the Chair of Summa Strategies. Welcome back to you, Tim Powers.
I'm mourning today, Rob, but I'll get over it. Like many Canadians. Hard day, buddy.
I know, Tim. I'm right there with you, buddy. I'm feeling your pain.
Nova Scotian hits the post and breaks our heart, though it wasn't his fault. The Alabuck, the American goalie, was outstanding.
He was good. Yeah. Oh, so many chances. Connor McDavid on a breakaway. Celebrini on a breakaway. Taves with a wide open net. Hellebuck with the tremendous save. One of the columnists in the Globe and Mail said, said today that Nathan McKinnon had so much time with that wide open net he could have filled out a mortgage application, and yet somehow he missed it. But as my grandfather used to say when he was playing golf, it's not how, it's how many, and they had more than us. So yeah, it's a tough day, but we'll get over it. You're okay, Matthew? You're okay?
Oh, it's. I'm grieving just like all of you, but yeah, it was a lot of fun though. It was a hell of a game, and I got to watch it with my 6-year-old, and her first time seeing Team Canada go for gold. So I'm going to look at the glass half full in that sense.
All right, very good, very good. We'll get him next time. Now let's talk some politics. It's been a clear shift, I would say, in the polls, and the Liberals are now clearly widening their lead over the Conservatives. Matthew, why do you think this is happening?
Well, this is going to be a bit simplistic and maybe evergreen, but I think it's the adult in the room, right? I think we can debate whether Mark Carney has delivered substantively. I think there's a lot of stuff still pending in terms of the results of what he's doing and his overtures to different countries, trying to diversify trade and all of that. But I think at the end of the day, when you open up a newspaper or scroll or however you choose to consume the news, I think for most Canadians, what they're seeing is someone who is all around connecting with them, an adult in the room, a lot of stable leadership. And I think that's something that Canadians are appreciating. And I think that more and more, despite surviving the leadership convention, leadership review vote, I think Pierre Poilievre, the perception that Canadians have of him, I think it's just cemented now, and it's just harder and harder to pull back. It's easy to build. It's hard to get out, of when you have a negative perception in politics, the unfavorable. So I think that's really all there is to it at this point in time. I think Canadians are really rallying around that the style of leadership Mark Carney brings to the table.
All right. Adult supervision. What do you think, Tim? What is happening here that the Liberals are widening their lead over the Conservatives, according to most of the polls now?
I think all of what Matthew said is on the money, and I would add this, Rob. I think we're living in this moment where Carney, fairly or unfairly, is being viewed as above politics, right? I think the challenge Pierre has, because he's just gone through a very political process of a leadership review and floor crossing, he's caught in the process of talking politics and the machinations of politics and what's best for the game of politics. Whereas Carney, because of everything that is happening with Trump, he's kind of put himself above that. And I think right now we are in this place in Canada where people welcome that because of the existential threat that Trump is. And he's doing very well, the Prime Minister, because of those circumstances. So it really is a case of circumstances. And, Pierre Poilievre has no time because he has to deal with his own leadership questions popping up to really go after Carney. So hard to lay a glove on him when you're having gloves laid on you all the time and you're trying to stay off the mat.
All right. Nice segue there, because my next question was going to be the Conservative Party's lost another MP, another floor crosser over to the Liberals in Matt Genereux from the Edmonton area. So what does all of this say about Pierre Poilievre's hold on the Conservative Party right now, Matthew? He's just through the leadership review process, 87% support, and yet so many questions remain. What do you think?
Well, this is going to be a weird thing to say, but I think two things can be true at the same time. I don't think that Pierre's leadership style is doing himself any favor with some of these MPs who I think are feeling that the approach that Mark Carney has is more in line with their values and where they want to be. At the same time, I don't think that, it's going to be a never-ending, cavalcade of MPs leaving the Conservative caucus. Are there still going to be one or two more that are going to cross the floor? It's possible. I mean, the rumors around this town in Ottawa are never ending, but about that. But I think at the end of the day, there's a core of the Conservative caucus that I think is in it. And I do think there are some who are just chafing a little bit under Pierre's leadership, but also desiring what we were just talking about, right? That sort of the leadership that, as Tim put it, rightly or wrongly, is perceived as being above politics. I think there are MPs who want to be a part of that. I could quibble with the circumstances around Matt Jean-Roux's floor crossing. I find it bizarre to, so cavalierly throw out the concept of resignation last fall and then kind of just go AWOL a little bit and then come back and, well, I guess he's not really resigning anymore and now he's changing caucuses. So I think all those circumstances are not great. I don't think it's a great look, but I don't really think, unfortunately, this is maybe a bit cynical, but I don't think Canadians are paying attention to those details. Really what they see is they see yet another Conservative MP cross the floor. And again, not to overemphasize Tim's point there, but it's the right one, is that I think it just enhances that perception that Mark Carney, what he's doing is beyond the sort of traditional liberal conservative spectrum, if you will. Again, whether that's true or not is a debatable matter, but that's the perception I think that gets enhanced there.
All right. I'll ask Tim about that, but we'll have to wait until we come back to our Monday Newsday political panel. Just getting started, just getting warmed up. Just awakening from the national nightmare that was that hockey game yesterday. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Here with Matthew Dube from Proof Strategies, Tim Powers from Summa Strategies, talking politics to start the week. Tim, how would you describe Pierre Poilievre's grip on the Conservative Party right now, given the loss of another MP?
I think it's still strong. Certainly among aspects of the membership, it's strong, but I think it is not as powerful as it once was, and there is some vulnerability there for him that he hasn't dealt with before, and I think, he risks things unraveling if there are more floor crossers, and there may very well be. I mean, he didn't have the best week last week either, right? It wasn't just your man from Edmonton, Jean Roux, moving across. It was the whole Jamil Giovanni exercise of putting himself ahead of the party, as I think many people in the Conservative Party would agree, and he had to respond to that. Again, when you're talking about your own leadership challenges, you're not doing very well. But yeah, look, he has a better hold, I would say, than Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer did when things got rough for them.
All right.
But he's not out of the woods.
Okay, let's turn our attention to immigration-related issues. The Conservatives, I just spoke with Michelle Rempel Garner, planning to introduce a motion tomorrow asking about the growing costs to the interim federal health program. Meantime, in Alberta, you have Premier Smith announcing a referendum on many immigration/healthcare related issues. What do you think of Conservative leaders, Tim, taking a more, what I would call, hardline stance on immigration?
Well, I think there are legitimate questions to be asked about how we manage our immigration system and how we care for people who come in, and does that create some kind of disadvantage for people that are already here? I do think both what the federal Conservatives are looking to do right now and what Danielle Smith is doing is a bit more overt politicking than I think I would like. I think they're playing more to the perception that exists among many people, not just Conservatives, that, we have this immigration system that is just wide open and is disadvantaging us. It's letting people in. There are no checks and balances. And again, that's not to say the system can't be fixed, but I think they're playing off the falsehoods of the immigration system, trying to get political gain off of it. I worry about the consequences of that because, you know what, Rob, but particularly where you and I are from, and Matt's part of Quebec, we need people. We need people to come over. We want to attract people. We don't want to send an anti-immigration message to the world.
Yeah, well, what Premier Smith, I think she would say what she's after is what Quebec already has and has had since the early 90s, and that's more control over immigration. Certainly as a premier, she's not alone on that. But Matt, what do you think about what you're hearing from these Conservative leaders on immigration?
Yeah, I think the challenge is there's a fine line, right? I think to give credit where it's due, I think the Liberals, and actually this started, some people might not believe this, but I certainly started observing it when Mark Miller was the minister, when Justin Trudeau was still prime minister. The Liberals have done a reasonable job of trying to scale back, immigration while not breaking the consensus around it within Canada, although some might argue that it was already broken. It's a delicate exercise. As Tim said, there's obviously a continuing need for economic immigration. We want to remain a compassionate country that welcomes people who are fleeing conflict and violence of all sorts and forms. But I can appreciate that, at a time where affordability is an issue, housing is an issue, that these things are going to be called into question. But I think for politicians, there's a very delicate responsibility that's required to not, placate the lowest common denominator, to not be engaging in maybe some misinformation or disinformation even willingly about some of these issues. I mean, it's complicated stuff. And I think for Danielle Smith, I think what I find frustrating about it, I'll put it that way, is it seems to be a bit of a distraction, a way to kind of have her cake and eat it too when it comes to some of the anti-Ottawa separatist sentiment that's obviously growing in Alberta. And I think, it's just easy to sort of, it does give the appearance that you're trying to pin some of these issues on the quote unquote others, and sort of fanning the flame, of those divisions. And on the flip side, for Pierre Poilievre, you also have to be careful that you don't look like you're just carrying water for the Premier of Alberta. Pierre Poilievre's support needs to be much broader than just that one province. And I think that that's the big risk for him as well, is to just look like you're copying, the notes of the person sitting next to you in class, as it were. I don't think is necessarily the best politics here. So you've got to proceed with caution. I think the reality on the ground is very different than sometimes these headlines give the impression of, where there seems to be an implication that somehow people are trying to game the system. That's not what's going on. These are complicated issues where we want to be compassionate and care for people. And I think politicians need to proceed with caution, because their words carry a lot of weight on these matters.
Hey, Rob, how did Matt know we got through school doing that, copying the notes of others? Matt, secret. Come on.
All right. When we come back, speak for yourself, Tim Powers. Speak for yourself. Okay. Are we headed toward a showdown between the government and its back to the office mandate 4 days a week, so much so that there could be a strike at tax time? Talk about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Tim Powers, he's the chair of Summa Strategies, and Matthew Dube is vice president at Proof Strategies. It's our Monday political panel in the nation's capital, in the big government town. Public servants are not happy about being called back to work to the office 4 days a week. They didn't want to be back in the office 3 days a week. There are threats of strike action over this, which could have a severe impact on tax filers if 35,000 CRA employees are off the job. Matthew, how do you expect the government to deal with this?
Well, I think there's kind of two sides to this. I guess it's my day for being a relativist, but obviously I don't expect the public servants to get much sympathy. They rarely ever do in our politics, and job stability and all the other things that people envy. And I know that there's many private corporations that are instilling even stricter, 5 days, so basically fully back to the office mandates. And so even 4 days is almost a relief compared to what some others are going through. But at the same time, anyone who's ever, looked into workers' rights and organized labor will tell you that it's not because the plight of one worker is worse that needs to be what's aspired to, right? To the lowest common denominator. I think there is something to be said about having more flexible conditions. I think there's changing expectations in the labor market, both in the private sector and the public sector. And I think there's also legitimate grievance around, facilities, right? Like even at the provincial level, there's stories out today about a lack of appropriate, the lack of the right number of desks, appropriate workspaces, things like that. I know there's similar issues being flagged federally. I live in Ottawa. I can tell you that, the transit's unreliable, parking's an issue. So there are a lot of legitimate grievances that I don't think have been fully addressed. I don't think it'll mean that the public will get tons of sympathy. But just lastly, I'll just say for the government, the big challenge is that under normal circumstances, I think they'd have the upper hand. But I think in light of all the job cuts that are on the horizon and already beginning to start, I think that complicates matters a little bit for them.
All right. Tim, what do you think?
Well, Rob, if 35,000 CRA employees are going to be off, I just hope they write off all our taxes, and that'll make me happy. But I don't think that's their intent, unfortunately, to give Canadians a tax holiday, though it would be wonderful. Look, I have two family members who are civil servants who are already in the office 3 to 4 days a week. They don't have an issue with it. My challenge with all of this is before anybody who was hired before the pandemic and took jobs where they were required to be in the office should understand that, the pandemic was an exceptional circumstance. And people hired afterwards, I think they have a bit of a different case that if they were working remotely. But if you were hired to work in an office, then in fairness, you should go back to the office. I think there's lots to be said about more productivity in there, though the public service is a different argument. The public service outside of Ottawa, as we all know, doesn't have as big an audience as it does here. I don't think they'll be doing themselves any great favors by going on strike. They'll only be hurting or CRA does, they'll only be hurting their brand further and further diminishing their ability to make public arguments outside of the nation's capital.
All right. Great to hear from both of you to start the week. We'll speak again soon. Bye-bye. Yeah, that's Tim Powers. He is the chair of Summa Strategies. He's also the managing director at Abacus Data. And Matthew Dube is vice president at Proof Strategies, and he is a former NDP MP back in the days of the Orange Wave NDP. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and Talkback, first of the week, is coming up right after the news, the latest breaking news here on News Radio. Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today, the Americans. The Americans. Here's what we want to know. What's your opinion of the Americans these days? The leadership, the country, the U.S., the people, all of it. How do you feel about the Americans right now? How do you feel about the Americans? Same as you always have? How do you feel about the Americans? You feel, I don't know, sorry for them? Pity them? Do you have pity for the Americans right now? Afraid of the Americans? Do you trust the Americans? Do you hate the Americans? Hate is such a strong word, but it's been in the news media lately, so I figure it has to be part of the conversation for us. Do you love the Americans? Do you love the Americans? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. On social media, I see this all the time. I wish the Americans would get their act together. Is that how you feel? I wish the Americans would get their act together. I see that all the time on social media. I wish the Americans would get their act together. Been a lot of polls. Polls about how Canadians feel about Donald Trump. Canadians don't think too much of Donald Trump. Polls about how Canadians feel about the United States. We're not, it seems, having a great love affair with the U.S. these days. An awkward breakup, it's been described as. Been lots of news stories about people shunning products made in the United States. Canadians not traveling as much as they used to the United States. Cross-border travel way, way down. Polls and news stories about how some Canadians think the United States is the biggest problem in the world right now. The Americans are the biggest problem in the world right now. Is that how you feel? We've had news stories in the last week or so. Canadians have a more favorable opinion of countries like China or even Russia than they do of the United States. Some Canadians think the United States is a bigger threat to the world than China or Russia. United States, biggest threat in the world. Is that how you feel? About the Americans, biggest threat in the world? Haven't come across many polls or news stories about how Canadians actually feel about their American neighbors to the south on a more personal basis. We'd like to explore that today with your help. There's been poll after poll, news story after news story about how we feel about the U.S., whether we have positive or negative views of the U.S., lots of polling about whether we see the United States as a friend or foe, ally or adversary. Not the same kind of investigation into how we feel about Americans more generally. Has this growing animosity that Canadians seem to have for the United States or for Trump, does it extend to the American people themselves? Let's find out. After all, more than 74 million Americans voted for Donald Trump in the last presidential election in the United States. 74 million. So how do you feel about the Americans these days? The same as you always had? No ill feelings at all? No ill will? Are you angry with the Americans? Because they put someone like Trump in office, for example? It's been in the news recently that Canadians have a hate-on for the United States. A hate-on. Is that too strong? Feel sorry for the Americans? Pity? Sympathy? For the state of that country right now? Do you think they're getting what they deserve given the leaders they elect? Elections have consequences after all. How about this one? Would you rather be an American? We've heard it from people in Alberta recently. Some of them have called this show. And they have said, I'd rather be American than Canadian, if given the choice. If you're anything like the rest of us, you may have family in the United States, good friends in the United States. Americans may be friends of yours. How do you feel about the Americans these days? And not just because they beat us at hockey. That's not the only reason we're bringing this up. But it's because of everything that's been going on. The Americans. Share your opinions on the Americans. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. If you have never called before, well, welcome to it. Just mention that to us, and we will make your call a priority. Let's talk about our neighbors to the south today. The Americans. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback. And this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What is your opinion of the Americans? Pretty basic question for you to start the week on Talkback today. Give me your opinion on the Americans. 1-833-668-2577. Starting in Halifax today with first-time caller Stephen. Hello, Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
We're dealing with the whiteout blizzard right now, but as part of the situation about the Americans, I would like to say that their treatment of Cuba in this situation of a chokehold is unhumanitarian, uncool, and definitely not something that we should be accepting. We should be supporting Cuba by giving them food and supplies to make sure that this embargo that orange face Donald Trump has decided that is important to the security of the United States. I just find this whole debacle an unseen, acceptable reality. I don't understand why he's trying to do what he's doing.
Okay, but you would be in favor of Canadians because there have been calls for this, for the Canadian government to, say, send whatever humanitarian supplies, food, fuel. They're running out of fuel, basically. You would be in favor of Canada helping to send emergency supplies to Cuba?
I certainly would. I think they need medical supplies. I know they need medical supplies. We all know that.
All right. What if that drew the wrath of the Americans?
Donald Trump's little blah, blah, blahs is irrelevant anymore because his tariff war against the world is over. So I suggest that we as Canadians take a prominent step in helping the Cubans as best that we can without breaking any laws. Like, I still think that we should. I think Mexico should send them oil, and I think we should send them food and medical supplies. I really do.
All right, fair enough. Let me ask you this. I mean, clearly you have no love lost for Donald Trump, his administration. Fair enough. You're not the only one there. The very popular opinion. How do you feel about the American people?
I love them. They're
you love
our
them.
friends.
Okay.
He is not. He is not representing a whole nation. He's representing himself, and that's all he's ever done.
All right, Stephen. Best of luck with the weather. I know it's a difficult day in your part of the country today with the weather, high winds, lots and lots of snow. Again, today for most of Nova Scotia. Another snow day there. And lots of callers from there today. 1-833-668-2577. Dave is in Halifax as well. Hello, Dave. You're up next, Dave.
I would say there's more of a hate-on for the U.S. after collecting the gold medal in the women's and men's hockey. That really hurts. Now, one thing I saw about the U.S. That was very classy was Johnny Gaudreau, his jersey, former Johnny Gaudreau, number 13, that they had in their dressing room, in the U.S. Dressing room. And I think that may have had something to do with their victory, because no matter how hard, that was by far the best game Canada played, I would think. So many close and just amazing misses that generally you'd score on. Just didn't happen for Canada. So maybe it was just meant to be. And by the way, that was Miracle on Ice. 1 year, I think 46 years. Miracle on Ice.
46 years.
Lake Placid, right? Against the Soviet Union, the young college kids came together and beat a very powerful, some of the best hockey you'll ever see is the Soviets back Red Army team, if anybody remembers that. But getting to the Americans, I think we've always had a hate on. They're like, we always look up to them, right? They're winning this, they're winning that. And I've got American relatives and friends down south who treat me royally. And even during tumultuous times, which we've had worldwide, history-wise, always been treated very well. No difference, a little bit lost what Canadians are. And, but then again, I hear a lot of people here complaining about America. And I bet you a lot of people here have never been out of the little fish bowl, even in Nova Scotia, right? I've talked to people here who have never left the province, and they ridicule the United States. Rob, you've been through the United States. It's gorgeous. Even California, even though it's just such a crazy state, it's the most beautiful country in the world, California. Florida, same thing. Come on. The only reason I don't go down there is because of the dollar right now. The dollar is not good. And you had a caller about Cuba.
All right.
Look, Cuba is a communist regime. And I've been to Cuba many times, and I go there because it's cheap. Basically, flies direct from Halifax. You got a cold beer in your hand on the airport down there, and it's very inexpensive. You don't go there for the food. But the last time I went during COVID, or just during that time, we managed to escape here and spent some time, and the people were repressed. They're very educated. They're very beautiful people, but they said they get their kids out of there, and they're in Florida and Miami. There's a little community of Cubans down there. They want to leave. They want a better lifestyle. They're living under this terrible regime. And by the way, when it comes to Russia and the oil going to Cuba, you got Venezuela, which was a nasty country, and also Russia. Trump has shut off the oil from Russia, from everywhere. That's part of the way. They're not dealing with trying to get the war ended. So he's hitting the Russians on their oil front, which supplies a good portion of Russia supplies Cuba with oil. So let's get that straight, folks.
So you think a lot of this angst or whatever towards the Americans, it's overdone? You think it's overdone?
I think it's because of Trump, and I also think, Rob, we are very frustrated with the conditions we're living with in this country, and he's just a kicking bag at the moment, right? And he's not
I see. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Dave, in Halifax. 1-833-668-2577. What's your opinion of the Americans? Have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's your opinion of the Americans, the country, the people? 1-833-668-2577. Love to hear from you today. The Monday Talkback. Rick is in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Hello, Rick. Thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon, Rob. Just a little weather report. It's snowing. I'd rather have that than tornadoes. So,
all right, fair enough. Sure.
Cover that right away. Look, just a real quick thing on the hockey. Was there anyone on the ice in that game that wasn't a millionaire? Maybe.
Well, no, the total payroll for Team Canada was $192 million. So no.
Okay, well that's 18. Anyway,
right.
Money talks, I guess.
Money talks, yeah.
My suggestion is have the World Juniors at the Olympics, and that was a much more even playing field. Enough said about that.
Yeah.
I never
well,
met
we didn't
really.
win there either.
No, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter who wins. It's just for the fun. Look, I majored in U.S. history, and I learned a lot about it back in my university days, and I've been following it ever since. And sometime in, I don't know, maybe the late 70s, I remember talking to some of my friends over a beer and saying, one thing about the Americans, it doesn't matter who wins. The elections, it's always the same. I remember when, Johnson went out and Ford came in, and then Nixon went out and Ford came in, and then I remember Bush. I didn't like George Bush Jr., and then Obama came in. I thought, that clears it up, and he was worse. So the American people, whom I feel sorry for, their particular system of government. The Constitution is very good, but you know what humans are like. When you write something down, there's a committee of 10 people. How do we get around that? And the Democrats got around it. Quite often, the Democrats are more quiet about what they do that would could be considered illegal on the the front of the world. And Trump, this particular term, he's out of his mind. I mean, I used to have some tolerance for the guy, but this particular first almost year, well, it's a year now, so the first year of his, it's crazy, and I feel sorry for the Americans right now, and I feel sorry for the rest of the world too, because Americans just basically do what they want, and there's only a couple of countries that can stand up to them, and we know who they are. So anyway, that's my opinion.
That's interesting, though, because that's that's one of the sentiments that I have here on my list. Do you feel sorry for them? Do you have pity or sympathy for them? And you're saying, yeah, because you sound like they're kind of fated because of their system of government, I believe is what you said, because of their system of government. This is
the way that they approach it. And the money that runs it. Okay, great.
And the money that runs it. That's very interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. In Dartmouth. Okay, when we come back, right after the news, we'll take a couple of calls from Calgary, Sackville, Nova Scotia as well. Go down to the South Shore of Nova Scotia. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. How do you feel about the Americans these days? 1-833-668-2577. The latest breaking news coming up next on Talkback. This is News Radio. Asking you today to start the week, what's your opinion of the Americans, the country, the people? How do you feel about the Americans these days? 1-833-668-2577. Americans are great. The last caller said he felt sorry for them these days. Is that how you feel? You love them? You hate them? Give us your opinion. On Talkback on News Radio to Sackville, Nova Scotia. Tara is up next. Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Hi, Tara. What would you say?
I would say the Americans are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and that the problem is their leader.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Yes, they may have elected him to be president, but he doesn't have a lot of compassion for fellow humans. He really only thinks about how he wants to do things and nothing about what everybody else needs.
Right. Okay. No room for compromise.
Yeah, like he's kind of like a toddler that only thinks about himself.
All right. And how does that extend to your feeling about, say, the American people these days? How do you feel about them?
I would say they're stuck. Like
they're stuck
in this predicament. Like they're basically pawns, and they're the government's pawns in the middle of all this.
Okay. So would you say you feel sorry for them? The previous caller said he kind of felt sorry for them. And it sounds like you're kind of on the same wavelength.
Because they're not in a safe place right now. They're at the whim of their government.
Right. So your opinion of, say, the American people hasn't really changed all that much. You haven't soured on the American people, or you're not angry at the American people, are you?
No. I would say the problem is their leader.
The problem is their leader. Okay. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577. 4 lines available there. Love it if you join the conversation today. Why don't we take a call from Calgary? We haven't taken a call from Calgary yet. Let's take Bob in Calgary. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Rob. Nice to talk to you again today on a beautiful sunny day, even though it's cold in Calgary. I wanted to talk a little bit about. My background is that half of my family are expat Canadians living in the United States, working in the United States, and happy to be in the United States. So I get a chance over the last 45 years to visit them regularly. And the American people, as people in almost every country, are good people. The problem with the world and with every country in the world is politics, religion, and crime. And so it's the politics that make everybody upset, because all the politicians have their own way of screwing up the world. And the fact that the United States, you had a caller talk about Cuba. Well, the United States hasn't been happy with Cuba for a very long time. JFK had the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, and people don't probably even know what that is, right? But Cuba's always been an issue, and so you would say, well, why doesn't their father country or their mother country, Russia, do something for them? Well, look what Russia's doing in the Ukraine, right? Every country has its own evils, let's put it that way. But the people in general, the people of every country of the world, are usually good and wonderful. And, if you travel the world, as I've had the fortunate capability of doing, you find that people throughout the world are good.
Okay. So when you speak with your friends and family in the United States, I mean, how do they feel about the situation that their own country is facing these days?
Well, half of them love everything that Trump is doing, which is what you would expect. And half of them are saying, no, we don't like this. And that's the election for you. So half the people vote Democrat, half the people vote Republican. I mean, look in Canada. Half the people don't like the Liberals. They hate what Justin Trudeau did to the West. And half the people say, hey, listen, we love Liberals, we love Justin, and let's have a party. So it's just the way people are.
Right. So your family is kind of made up of little red states and little blue states. And it depends, I guess, who you're having dinner with.
Yeah. And, the thing that you do around the dinner table, if you want to have fun, you take the opposite side. You say, oh, I don't agree with this, and this is what I think. And you have a nice little discussion or argument. And then the other half, you say, well, I don't want to argue tonight, so I'll agree with what your point of view is. So I mean, we're a fickle species. Human beings, from day to day, either we're going to fight about, as I say, politics, religion, or crime. And those are the three things that either make our countries great or screw them up, as we see now in Mexico with the crime part.
All right. Thank you for your call today. Lots of time to fit you in today. Talkback, first one of the week. How do you feel about the Americans? What's your opinion of the Americans, the country, the people these days? Great people, great country. Do you have a little sympathy for the Americans these days? Are you angry with the Americans? Is it a love-hate thing? 1-833-668-2577 and share your opinion on Talkback. It's why we do the show. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's your opinion of the Americans? That's what we're asking today. To the South Shore of Nova Scotia, Kate is up next on Talkback. Hi, Kate.
Hi there. If my landline dies, I'm on the edge of the Atlantic here, and it's pretty bad out. So,
all right.
I have been very upset about the bad mouthing of the politicians in the United States, in particular President Trump. I don't like that kind of backstabbing talk. It creates a lot of gossip mongering. And since most of us have close friends and maybe family, for sure family, who also live in the States, I just find the whole thing very offensive. I spent 5 winters in Century Village East in Deerfield Beach area. I have friends throughout Canada and the States who still spend their winters there. My cousin and her husband are in Florida right now. This is her second trip, and she has another one planned in March with friends. And myself, when my kids were young, we did a lot of stealth camping all through the States before that became a thing. And we always had wonderful experience in the States. And the same when I spent the winters there. So I just don't like the way politicians speak. We have so many problems in Canada, irreparable problems. So who are we to be judging someone else, especially on a personal level, as people do with Trump, instead of strictly business and politics level? So that's my rant today.
Okay, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one. Maybe the weather has you riled up. For example, let me run this by you. Recently, a Canadian politician got into hot water because he was on a right-wing news outlet in the United States. Jamil Javani said we have to stop throwing hissy fits over the Americans. And he was taken to task for that, and he was accused of bad-mouthing Canadians. But do you agree with him that we're throwing too many hissy fits?
Absolutely. The first thing I did when they said they were going to take booze off the shelves, and I don't drink, but I went and bought a whole bunch of Kentucky bourbon. When it came back onto the shelves, first thing I did was I went and bought a bunch of Kentucky bourbon. Because, for instance, the South Shore of Nova Scotia, Chester area that I know, but I have 6 properties in 6 different locations. We have so many people from America who come and have summer homes here and have holidays here. And we have people who are third-generation Bostonian backgrounds. what would happen to Nova Scotia if the Americans didn't come and spend their money here? So I just find it highly, highly offensive when we who are so imperfect are bad-mouthing and judging. What happened to, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything? We're
All
supposed
right.
to be
Thank
so
you.
nice.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Kate. We'll let you go so you can ride out the storm, and maybe have a shot of bourbon. It sounds like you have the supplies. Let's go to Reza. Is in Calgary. Hi, Reza. Hi, Reza.
Hi, Rob. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very good, Reza. Thank you. What's your opinion of the Americans?
I think United States is just a great nation. I have them as a neighbor. I live there. I have family members living there. I travel to U.S. I really don't have anything negative to talk about the Americans. We get this through this kind of rough patch that we are right now. But making Trump as a symbol of United States, I don't think that's a fair assessment. We are more emotional. He's fighting for his country. He's fighting for his country, and he was elected to do so. We have to respect the votes the Americans gave to him.
I think we're. Okay. I mean, there have been lots and lots of polls, as I say, that they don't portray the Americans in a very good light. That they're not a reliable ally, for example. These sorts of things. There was a headline the other day that Canadians hate the United States. Look how much Canadians hate the United States. What do you think about that?
Wrong. Reliability is a subjective thing. Through history, alliances change for different reasons. This is it now. But judging Americans based on what we are going through, I think that's very unfair. The United States is a great nation, and I tell you why. The United States now is the only nation defending Iranians when the government is killing them in thousands. He is mobilizing his navy, and he stopped the killing and the executions. Who else? Like, people say he's not a human, he's not kind. I totally disagree. What he does is hurting us, but we can use that as to kind of characterize him. He's a president.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's the only person who did that. Tell me other presidents stood up for Iranians. No one.
Interesting. Thank you, Reza. Thank you. Don't judge the Americans by their president, and by the sounds of it, he doesn't think the president's doing a bad job, especially when it comes to the situation with Iran. 1-833-668-2577. What's your opinion, everyone, of the Americans these days? Our Talkback topic on a Monday. This is News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. First one of the week. What's your opinion of the Americans? What's your opinion of the country, the people? How do you feel about the Americans these days? 1-833-668-2577. Americans are great. Some people say, I kind of feel sorry for the Americans right now. I kind of have sympathy for the Americans right now. Some people say we shouldn't, as Canadians, be pointing fingers. We have a lot of our own problems here in this country. But others have expressed, a certain amount of wariness, even anger. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Eric in Halifax. So, hi, Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hey, how you doing, Rob? I'm going to tell you a little story about Americans. I worked with them on the Peace Bridge, on the Fort Erie Peace Bridge. We worked side by side. They were on one half, we were on the other side. I got along with them great. We all know that Eric likes gambling, so I went to Fort Erie Racetrack, ran into Americans, no problem. Went to Buffalo Raceway, Americans, no problem. Went down to bet the dogs down in Florida, no problem. I'll tell you, it's the man that's steering the ship that's making Americans, for people painting them, a different color. Like, get rid of that man that's steering the ship, and they'll be all right. They're not that bad of a people as far as I'm concerned.
Right. But what about by extension, then 74 million Americans voted for Donald Trump.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
So, by any extension, does that change in any way the way you feel about Americans? I think that's a fair question.
Well,
no?
I mean, you could go to the well, but when the well dries up, you got no other chance but to do without it. And they had their backs were against the wall. There was nobody else out there. It's the same thing with our guy here. Nobody wants that Pierre Poilievre. Nobody wants him. So, I mean, when you only got one choice, either you don't vote or you vote. And that's the bottom line. 74,000 people had to do what their heart told them. They didn't want to give that lady a shot, and they didn't want to give that other lady that ran there. They don't want a woman in there. They want a man, and the man they got in there is on an accident waiting to happen.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It's just so frustrating. Yeah. Americans are not all that bad. I'm sorry to say that.
Okay.
They got to get rid of that guy that's steering the ship.
Okay. It'll be a better place once he's gone. That's what you're saying. It'll be a better place once he's gone.
Understatement of the day.
Understatement of the day. Okay. All right. That's it for hour number 1 of Talkback. We've actually cleared the phone lines now, so we'll reset things coming up in hour number 2 of Talkback and hopefully get more of your opinions on the Americans, the country, the people, and how you're feeling these days about the Americans at 1-833-668-2577. The latest breaking news is coming up next. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, asking, what is your opinion of the Americans? The country, the people, the Americans. How do you feel about the Americans? 1-833-668-2577. Do you think the Americans are great? You have some sympathy for the Americans? Are you angry at the Americans? Love the Americans, hate the Americans? I mean, hate, such a strong word. But I would point out it has been in the news recently about how Canadians feel about the United States. The word hate is used. Headline, Politico. Look how much Canadians hate the United States right now. Hate the United States right now. I mean, is that how you feel? You hate the United States right now? Politico Canada did a poll with the help of this polling firm out of the UK called Public First. Asked a whole bunch of questions, such as, do you agree or disagree the United States is a reliable ally? Do you agree or disagree the United States is a reliable ally? 58% disagreed. 70% of liberals disagreed. Only 41% of conservatives disagreed, but still 41% of conservatives disagreed that the United States is a reliable ally, that we can rely on the Americans. But most Canadians disagreed when they were asked if they think the United States is a reliable ally, according to this poll. What country is the biggest threat to peace? The United States, China, or Russia? And 48% of Canadians, so almost half, said it was the United States is the biggest threat to peace, the United States. There's Russia with the biggest war in Europe since the Second World War. 48% of Canadians say the United States is the biggest threat to peace. 29% said Russia and only 10% said China. Almost half of those polled said the United States is the biggest threat to peace. And then the pollster asked, do you think Donald Trump is actively seeking conflict with other countries unprovoked? And 70% said yes, including 85% of NDP supporters, 77% of Liberal supporters, and even 57% of Conservative supporters. It asked, do you think Donald Trump has made the relationship between Canada and the U.S. weaker or stronger? Half said it's made it weaker, but it will recover once Trump is gone. 29% said it's made it weaker and will never recover. Only 7% said the relationship has been made stronger. Wouldn't you love to talk to that 7%? Another 7% said Trump has had no impact. United States. Maybe it's clickbait. Maybe it's just clickbait. Michelle is in Calgary. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. Michelle, thanks for calling. You're on the line. What would you say?
Thank you. I would say hate is a very harsh word. I think more mad would be more appropriate. I love the American people. I love traveling to America. Would I go there right now? Absolutely not. I think a lot of what's going on today with people saying they hate is a lot of the internet. And like you said, clickbait, bots. You get into a conversation and all of a sudden something is thrown in there. And I think people need to take the time to educate themselves more on what's affecting them, the tariffs, how they actually run. Maybe seeing both sides of the thing. Yes, Trump is not doing a great job right now. I think the only thing I ever agreed on with Trump was that the cartel was a terrorist group. But, it's happening everywhere. I think a lot of the hatred is coming from misinformation and, like you say, the bots on Facebook and people believing it rather than doing research and finding out what's true and what's not true.
All right. But you say you wouldn't travel to the United States right now. Why is that?
I wouldn't travel to the United States right now, just watching what's going on. I have a family. I don't want to take a chance. You see Canadians getting locked up, seniors getting locked up. It's being street safe, I guess. Yeah, I wouldn't go downtown in Calgary by myself at night in the dark for probably the same reason I wouldn't go to the States.
Oh, really?
Protection.
You actually think if you cross the border into the United States, you would be at risk of being detained? Like what, in an ICE facility or something?
If they took my phone right now, probably. Yes, because I'm very opinionated. But as far as Americans, absolutely, I have nothing against them. I just feel that people are feeding in too much to unnecessary stuff. So what is Trump doing? He's throwing out all kinds of stuff. He's talking like a kid. Me personally, I think it's his way of defending himself on the Epstein files, but that's a different story altogether. So, I think working on just all these bots being thrown out, working on, saying this is going on, this is going on, this is going on. When, yes, the people did vote for him, and they did vote for the immigration and getting rid of the criminals and that. But I don't think when they voted, they realized he was going to go about it the same way. So I think if you talk to the people that voted for him, say on that subject, I bet you a lot of them, their ideas are different. Like, yes, we agree with it, but no, we don't.
Well, maybe some of them, when you look at his approval ratings down in the mid 30s, that suggests that some people who voted for him are having regrets, right?
Absolutely. And you don't know. You could vote whoever you want to vote, but in the end, when they get in, they're going to do what they want to do anyways, right?
All right.
So he's doing what
you're wary about traveling to the United States, and you're kind of mad at the Americans. Kind of mad.
I'm not mad at the Americans. I'm mad at their government, I guess you could say.
Their government. Okay. All right. You cleared that up. Sure thing. Gotcha. Okay. Off and running on hour number 2 of Talkback. 1-833-668-2577. 4 lines available. Let's kick this around for another hour. Okay. What's your feeling of the Americans these days? How do you feel? No problem with the Americans? Mad at the Americans? Have sympathy for the Americans? Love the Americans? 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
How do you feel about the Americans these days? That's our question on Talkback today. Just fine? No problem? Angry? Upset in any way? Are they getting what they deserve? I come across that from time to time. The Americans are getting what they deserve. They elected Trump, and now they're getting what they deserve. Chaos and turmoil. Or do you love the Americans? Hey, some of my best friends are American. Just give us a sense of it. 1-833-668-2577 in London today. Ken is in London. Hello, Ken.
Yeah, that's me.
That's you.
I love
Go
the
ahead.
Americans. I've traveled all
All right.
through every state in America as a truck driver. Americans are great people, and I don't agree with everything Trump is doing, but I do understand what he's doing. And Trump isn't our problem in this country. Our problem is in Ottawa with all the corruption going on there. We need to clean that up before we start judging anybody else. This Carney guy is trying to destroy this country, and we need to take it back from him because he wants the Chinese communist system in this country.
Okay, why do you say that? Mr. Carney's quite popular right now. Very high approval ratings, way ahead in the polls. I don't get the sense that Canadians really want to embrace Chinese communism, but certainly Canadians right now prefer Mr. Carney over the alternatives.
I know, you better wake up because if you listen to him, he says the new agreement with China will work very well with the new world order. And what does everybody think that is? You will own nothing and be happy. So, that guy in Nova Scotia that wants to keep sending food and fuel to the Cubans, he wanted to prop up a communist government there because the Cubans have been oppressed for decades. Trump's trying to get them freedom. He's trying to make that government collapse, same as in Iran, same as in Venezuela. And that's the reason he wants the Arctic, is to keep the Chinese and the Russians out. So people just need to see what really the big picture is here.
All right. You say you understand what he's doing, meaning Trump. You understand what he's doing. Enlighten us.
He's got a bigger picture. Like he's trying. If you remember the Monroe Doctrine, when they wanted communism completely out of the Americas, that's what he's doing. Because like in Venezuela, Iran, China, Russia, they're all operating out of there. So that's why he went in there, is to get rid of them, to get them out of there. He wants to get communism out of the Americas, North America, South America. That's his big picture, I believe, anyway.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. So you would be certainly in the minority of these, recent polling results. Do you agree or disagree the United States is a reliable ally? 6 out of 10 Canadians disagree. They don't think the Americans are reliable anymore. And that they're a bigger threat to peace than China or Russia. Half of Canadians polled said that.
I don't agree with that at all. And I think if China or Russia decided to invade this country, America would be the first one here to help us. So wake up, Canada.
Wake up, Canada. Gotcha. Ken, thank you. Back to snowy Halifax today. Doug is in Halifax. Hi, Doug. Thanks for calling. You're on the line.
Good afternoon, Rob.
Hey, hi, Doug. What's your opinion?
Yeah.
On the Americans?
My opinion, I have nothing against the American people. I think they're great people. I think politically, there's a lot of things that I agree with what Trump is doing, and a lot of things I don't. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, I think they're like you and I. They're just regular people, and they think like we do. They do. Their beliefs are like what we are, and I think they're great people. Other than there's so many issues we have in our own country, why are we so involved or try to get involved with what's going on in the United States? I know they have a big impact on what we do here, and that's the way it is. And, you and I probably never, ever lived to see it, but, we got a big, vast piece of land here. Whether or not, 40,000 people are going to increase it to 80,000, 100,000. There's more people right now in the state of California than we got in Canada. So I don't know if we can protect it all. Sooner or later, someone's going to want to come in here and take it. It's either China, Russia, or U.S. And if it comes down to I'd rather say the U.S. What do you think of that?
So Well, what I was going to ask you was, do you think we're, paying too much attention to what happens in the United States, giving it too much attention, maybe exaggerating its importance? Is it overblown? Is that what you think?
Not the way, because they have such a big impact on us. But I really, that's a hard question to answer to you, Rob. But I want to ask you this, Rob, because I wanted to call up many times on your free for all Fridays. In Ottawa, my daughter lived there like 5 years ago. She moved back to Halifax, and I watch Power and Politics quite often. If I can't watch that or Power Play, I tape one of the other and I follow it the next day or watch it the next night.
Sure,
and I see 6 cranes, 6 of them, around Parliament buildings for 6 years.
Oh yes.
Or 5.
Yes.
What the hell is going on there?
They're refurbishing. Yeah, they're refurbishing the entire center block of Parliament Hill. Okay. You have the east block down by the Chateau Laurier. You have the center block, and then you have the west block. And
6 years,
it's a decade-long project. It's going to take another 5 or 6 years before it's even done. They're remodeling the entire outside, and they're gutting the entire inside. I don't have the exact price tag for you. As well, underneath, they're building this massive underground welcoming center because it's a big tourist hotspot. Parliament Hill is like the most visited place in the nation's capital. It's like a 10-year project. It might not be done till 2030, 2031. Yeah, it's a big project.
Yeah. Are they putting a big bunker down there for all the politicians to hide him with in case there's a nuclear attack or something? I don't know. That's crazy.
Okay.
I'm glad you told me that.
I'm not sure, but that's what they're doing. Yeah, because the House of Commons is not even in the center block right now. Neither is the Senate. It's all been moved. The Senate is down in the old train station right now, where they used to have the First Minister's meetings during the constitutional debates. And the House of Commons is in the West Block, and Center Block is completely shut down. Big price tag, huge project, and probably another 5 years or so before it's done. Thank you, though. I'm glad I could answer your question. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's your opinion of the Americans these days? The country, the people, all of it. How do you feel about the Americans? 1-833-668-2577. And have your say like George in Fenn, Alberta is about to do. Hi, George.
That the Americans are great. The country's great. Their people are great. Their president is great. And he's going to make their country great again. Like we need somebody to make our country great again instead of the embarrassment that we have become. Now, like on your polls that you got going there, I mean, I call horse hockey on that. It's
really?
absolutely rubbish.
Why? Rubbish?
Because like those guys said at that meeting or that big gathering you guys had, we got your back, Mr. Carney. Like we know you got our back.
Oh yeah, here we go again. Yeah,
I know, but and then and the polls are just like the poll in Alberta. That only 12% would vote for independence. Well, that's nonsense. They took a poll in an NDP riding in Edmonton, and then they cooked it up and whoever Carney's popular in Alberta. Come on. But anyways, the reason that Donald Trump has put tariffs on us, and I know and you know, is because of the massive drug trade that keeps coming through. The drugs that come in through the West Coast and then onto the trains and the trucks that get shipped across. Why do you think housing is so expensive?
Well, I don't know. I find that interesting because when you read, if you actually read, Google can be your friend. The U.S. Trade Representative report, they don't talk about drugs. They don't talk about the illegal drug trade. No, it doesn't mean the Americans don't have their problems with Canada, but they're age-old problems. One of them is supply management, right? And agriculture.
Yeah, well, that should be gone
Trump
too.
Is, certainly Trump is not the first to complain about that. They've been complaining about that for decades. Now, they don't like that the booze has been pulled off the shelves of government-owned liquor stores in Canada. Generally speaking, they're not impressed that Canada has government-owned liquor stores at all because they feel it limits choice of American products on Canadian store shelves. But they also don't like the things like, Online Streaming Act, the Online News Act, these sorts of things. But you read that report, sir. You can read, right? You're literate. I'm sure you can read the report. Doesn't say anything in there about drugs. Thank you for your call, Bo. This is News Radio. Yeah, we've been asking for your opinions on the Americans, and there are lots of lines available for Talkback. We're in the closing 30 minutes here or less. 1-833-668-2577. What's your opinion of the Americans? The country, the people. Love to know. Now, in the House of Commons, we telegraphed this for you earlier in the show. We had an interview with Michelle Rempel Garner, Calgary area member of Parliament, the immigration critic for the Conservatives. They are revisiting an issue that I first told you about 10 days ago, and that's the interim federal health program. Because we had a PBO report out that talked about the rising costs of this program. Now, back about 10 years ago, this was a program that was costing about $80 million a year. But the report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer, Office of Parliament, no political agenda, an office that just crunches the government's own numbers. The report says the cost of this program are going to hit $1 billion this year and then reach $1.5 billion by the year 2030. So in about 4 years from now, because of the way the Trudeau government largely handled Canada's immigration system program that used to cost about $80 million a year, going to cost $1.5 billion by the year 2030. I mean, it's an increase in excess of 2,000%, in about 10 years. And half of that increase, the PBO testified to this in a parliamentary committee, half of that increase is because of what are known as supplementary health benefits. And the Conservatives claim that these are, and Conservatives, when they were in government, tried to cut a lot of these services, supplemental health services. Conservatives are claiming, well, these are a lot of health services that Canadians and permanent residents who have been here for years, they don't get this without paying out of pocket. Things like psychologists and counseling therapists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, speech language therapists, prosthetics, mobility aids, hearing aids, home care, long-term care, medical equipment, some dental care, some vision care. So they are revisiting this today. This is what they're really hammering the government on. So you're going to hear again in the House from Michelle Rempel Garner during today's question period. Lena Diab is the immigration minister in the Liberal government these days. She's an MP from the Halifax area. Let's listen to this.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, the Liberals haven't been able to get hundreds of millions of dollars worth of pandemic scam fraud returned to them, so I highly doubt they'll be able to get fake refugees on deportation orders to pay back their health care. Mr. Speaker, this is something that needs to end. I will ask the minister again. This is a common sense motion. Literally everybody agrees with it. Will the minister support our constructive motion to ensure that Canadians who pay for our health system are given better access than fake refugees?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to keep our program sustainable, we have and are making measured changes to the health coverage. We've already introduced copay to the system. We are already curbing the misuse. We've introduced a lot of integrity measures. We have C12 that is currently in front of us, and thank you for the Conservatives for supporting that. That will reduce also misuse of the system. We also have international and obligations that Canada will continue to honor, particularly for those that are in need, and most of them are children.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer revealed the interim federal health program will cost taxpayers over $1.5 billion a year. The Liberals expanded this program to provide a deluxe health benefits like physiotherapy and home care to bogus asylum claimants whose phony claims have been rejected. Canadians are not entitled to them, but rejected asylum claimants are. Why are the Liberals giving bogus asylum seekers better health care than Canadians who fund the system?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, I really appreciate that question. To speak to the PBA report, those are projections in that report. They do not take into account the changes that are coming in Bill C-12. Neither do they take into account the interim health measures that we've introduced, including copay and other provisions. So I look forward to that.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals defend deluxe health benefits for bogus asylum claimants, millions of Canadians are waiting in line for care. There are Canadians in this country who can't get health care they need because the wait list is too long. Ahead of them on that wait list are people who filed fake refugee claims and were rejected by the government's own refugee board. Will the minister explain to Canadians why bogus asylum seekers are ahead of them in line?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to point to that member who I respect quite a bit. Last session we were on the same committee. In 2014, it was this Conservative government that the Supreme Court ruled that they made that their changes were unconstitutional, and they took away health care coverage for the most vulnerable, including children. This is not something we will do on this side of the House. Again, we are curbing misuse. We've introduced changes by introducing copay. Asylum claims are down by a third under this government.
That's good. Yeah, so the interim federal health program back as a hot topic in your nation's capital, in the House of Commons. Everything old is new again, it seems, because you do have to go back about a decade ago. This was a big controversy in Ottawa when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. They were on a cost-cutting drive, and this was one of the programs that they narrowed in on. It made a lot of news at the time. And it wasn't the Supreme Court that ruled that it was unconstitutional. It was actually the federal court that said it would be cruel to cut back some of those supplementary health benefits. The minister is right. Carney government has announced the budget needs to pass in order for this to go through. Some changes to the program because it's trying to save money as well. So there would be a $4 copay for any prescriptions. And as for all that supplementary stuff, the government would still pay 70%, but the patient would have to cover the other 30%. But it's a program that's going to cost $1 billion this year, on its way to $1.5 billion. Just to keep you up to date on that story. Conservatives are going to try and probably fail, most likely fail, to get a motion passed tomorrow to poke around into that program. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What is your opinion of the Americans these days? The country, its people? That's been the topic of Talkback today at 1-833-668-2577. Let's keep those calls going. Ryan is in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Ryan. You're on the air. Hi there.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, very good, Ryan. What would you say?
They're doing good. I like them, the ones I've met. Governments all around the world are kind of getting greedy and all over the place, but yeah, it is what it is. They can't do much better.
Okay. One of the backdrops for all of this, there was a Conservative MP recently, Jamil Javani, who said we're making a hissy fit. We have to stop throwing these hissy fits, talking about anti-Americanism and that it's getting out of hand in this country. What do you think about that?
No, it's always been the same.
It's always been the same?
It's always been the same. You get different groups everywhere, different groups at the bar, different nights. It's always been the same. Go to Montana. I camped in Montana around Fernie area, Lake Koocanusa. And if you cross the border there, it's open and they're damn near the same as British Columbians. They're all nice, cheering on the sides of the beach, welcoming. You can't tell. They're doing them.
Right.
And I'm just worried about how things are going. There's no votes anymore. One example is the fluoride in the water in Calgary. We had a vote back in the day. I forget how many years ago, but we voted against it. Now they're bringing it back without a vote, and they put it back into the water system. So, and all the wars and stuff that's going around the world, like there's no votes, and it seems like they're not talking really anymore. It's
I see.
Really
now, just
odd.
if I could just circle back to your trip to Montana, going camping in Montana. We've had some callers who have said, "Well, I'm not really interested in traveling to the United States right now." One caller suggested they were even afraid to travel to the United States, might get detained or whatnot. What do you think about that? Is that something that's crossed your mind?
I'd be a little bit more worried traveling to China with the open horse agreement right now. Yeah, that's kind of iffy, but yeah, going to closed off countries and
gotcha. I'm not.
Now they're
sure.
all.
I'm not familiar with that, Ryan. Thank you, though. Thank you for your call to Tom in Cambridge. Let's go to Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hi. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Tom. Thank you. Yep. Go ahead.
I'm really good. Nicest people. I spent a lot of time in Michigan, Detroit, and people are really good. Crazy politics at the moment, but you ask some of the people, even in Canada, they agree what this guy's doing, other than wanting to take over Canada. Like, I think the other thing is, if he would come against getting rid of all the illegal aliens, people vote. They love him, even in Canada. Like, you're split 50-50, and that's what the country is split. But I mean, it's going to be rough.
I don't know if when it comes to Trump, you have certainly a big divide in the United States between, blue states, red states, Democrats, Republicans. I don't know when it comes to, the way the Trump administration is dealing with things right now. It's not 50-50 in this country.
Not with what it is, but I mean, he still has a lot of support because what our politicians are doing. Now, I can see at the border, some of these, I guess, people that are in charge of it are taking the law into their own hands, or when they stop you in the States. So this is scaring a lot of people off, or what they want to do with the
for
bridge.
Sure.
But
yes.
I don't know, and if they get involved in a war in Iran, this would be terrible.
Right.
Like, they got to straighten out that war in Ukraine. But like I said, the average people in the States are the nicest. So
good people. Okay, so no ill will or anything.
No, and look,
no.
like stay away from this nationalism. Like, I mean, all the Blue Jays are almost all Americans. We got hockey players that are sports, and it has to deal with them when some people show the hate and whatever. So,
all right,
I think we could be
Don't
more
do the anthem. I got you, Tom. Thank you for your call. Got to run. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been asking today, what's your opinion of the Americans? How do you feel about the Americans? They're great. Do you have sympathy for them? Are you angry at them? Is it love-hate? Just what do you think? I, for the most part, have no issue at all with the Americans, although there are three I don't like very much today. One is Matt Boldy. He scored the first goal for the United States yesterday. The other is Hellebuck, the goaltender for Team USA, who I believe normally plays in Winnipeg for the Jets. I don't like him today. And Jack Hughes, of course, who scored the game-winning goal in the 3-on-3 overtime. So for the most part, I have no problems with Americans, with the exception of those three, okay, and maybe Donald Trump too. I mentioned one of the backdrops of all this is the hissy fit comment made by a conservative MP recently, Jamil Javani, and how people have reacted to that. Jamil Javani's always had a reputation of being his own guy, speaking his mind, dancing to the beat of his own drum, you might say. And he's the MP who, quite on his own, decided to go to Washington, D.C. and see if he could, all by himself, achieve some sort of elusive breakthrough on Canada-U.S. relations, because he knows the U.S. Vice President, J.D. Vance. They went to law school together. They've been friends for quite some time. So he says, I think I could help. But then, during an interview with Breitbart News, he said, well, we have to get beyond throwing a hissy fit about the United States. Okay. We have to get over this anti-Americanism. And the fact is, it's our most important trading partner. It's right next door. It's the most important relationship we have. We have to stop throwing hissy fits every time something happens that originates from the White House. And he went on to say that liberals are great at playing this up. And that it's to the point now where some Canadians are more open to seeing China in a positive light than they are the Americans. Now, some accused Mr. Giovanni of bad-mouthing Canada and Canadians while speaking to a U.S. media outlet, and they demanded that Pierre Poilievre distance himself from his remarks, and Pierre Poilievre, to a certain extent, did that last week when he said, well, Mr. Giovanni speaks for himself, and I speak for the party. Some people thought what Mr. Giovanni said was not controversial and highly accurate when it comes to how we should view the Americans these days and our relationship with the Americans. Jane is in Waterloo. She's going to get the last say, I think, today. Jane? Hello, Jane.
Hi, Rob. This is my first time.
Hi.
I'll be brief, but I think I have an important part of everything you've been discussing today. Where's the golden rule? Has it been put on the shelf to collect dust? My roots are Mennonite. The United States, not even the United States, it was the New England colonies, Pennsylvania, welcomed my family as refugees from Switzerland via Holland. I will forever be grateful for what America did for my family before they immigrated here to Upper Canada now, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Ontario. So the golden rule, I think, is an answer to a whole lot of our problems. Let's treat others the way we want to be treated. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your call. Great way to end the show. And why don't we end the show right there? We will be back tomorrow with a brand new topic and more of your calls. And until then, we will be bringing you the latest breaking news.